Hey everybody, welcome to the Long and Winded podcast and for viewing us on YouTube. Joined here today with my son for a segment I am now calling Saturdays with Spen. Long story on the nickname, which we'll get into at some point later. But just wanted to talk to you about a couple of things that you found interesting throughout the week. It was something that I initially wanted to talk about doing my own, but I thought bringing somebody in who I could share some stories with, hear some of your stories.
Sure.
For those of you who are watching on YouTube, you won't be able to see my wife. She is in the background doing the executive producing and the camera work, but anybody listening on the podcast will be able to hear her beautiful voice chiming in here in a little bit as well. So, good to see you, man.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's for the invite.
I appreciate you to land a guest of your caliber.
Absolutely.
So glad that your schedule
was able to clear up this morning.
So I wanted to start off, today is Saturday the 29th. Happy Leap Day. Happy Leap Day to all the Leap Day babies out there. I wanted to start off with a Kobe tribute that was on Monday. Big Laker fans, the family is... you were actually the one who told me about the Kobe story that Sunday morning, about a month ago now, right? And we were making breakfast, and it was TMZ.
And I got the TMZ report within the minute that it broke. So the first few minutes were definitely filled with, there's no way.
Right.
It took a while of waiting, not seeing anything on ESPN, not hearing anything from anybody, and then eventually Schefter, ESPN2, and as it got confirmed.
And I think my initial reaction, the more that I thought about it, probably surprised you, because I was a little groggy. You know, Mom and I had a long night. You know, I think we got in at like 5 o'clock. That was like one of the rare nights that we actually stay out late. And so I was making breakfast for her, for us, and I remember you showed me, and maybe it was because it was TMZ and I'm old, and even though I know that they have credibility when it comes to breaking stories like this, and even though some of their journalistic integrity may not be up to par with the traditional media outlets, they don't get things like that wrong. And you, I'm sure, knew that much sooner than what I did.
Well, my initial reaction, honestly, was looking at it and thinking, who is this other Kobe Bryant who lives in LA who just died in a helicopter crash? It genuinely, I couldn't believe that it was the Kobe. And I was like, oh, that's weird. I've never heard of this. I didn't know there was someone with the same name. And no, it was just like, wow.
Yeah.
That's really what happened.
And my initial reaction was just almost not disbelief, but denial. And that, you know, I see it, it's Kobe, and it's like, no, it can't be, because otherwise, like, the TVs would have automatically turned on, like, you know, Echo would have turned on and said, hey, you have to know this. I feel like...
We got a presidential alert on our cell phones.
Right.
Exactly.
That it should have been something like that, but, you know, obviously, unfortunately, it was true, and I know that it's been, while you know, I talk about it was an inspiration to finally start doing this for me and some other things in my life, it still sinks. But the tribute, I was excited. I don't say excited for it, but excited because the way that they described it as a celebration of his life, and of course it was a remembrance, and of course it was solemn and all of that. I thought it went off very well. Just kind of, I guess, your initial reaction.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it went well and that it served the purpose it was supposed to. And that is sort of the funny thing about celebrations of life and funerals and memorial services. I was telling one of my coworkers, man, I'm going to go home today and I'm really going to watch this Kobe Bryant memorial. I'm going to choose to make myself sad for the rest of the day. I'm not going to enjoy that. I'm going to feel hurt. But that's for the closure of that. That's why you do it. So everyone can share that together.
Right.
And then collectively start to rebuild from there.
Your fifth stage of the grieving process
at that point.
Yeah.
And so it is a very bizarre thing to have such an appreciation and enjoyment for something like that, and to hear, you know, Jordan talking and getting emotional, and to be able to see, like, this is all these, you know, grown men and women getting in front of thousands of people and just crying.
Right.
But there's no judgment. You know, they're crying one moment, laughing the next.
Which
about
is awesome,
the crying Jordan meme and all that. And it's so amazing that something so terrible can bring everyone together so well and really celebrate that life.
Well, I also thought it was cool where you have like all of these, and of course the female athletes and the female celebrities who were there, But if we talk about, the testosterone of,
Right.
NBA
Exactly.
players, of athletes at their prime, a lot of them, wearing their glasses probably because they just for their own, I mean, that literally that shield of, not
Right. Dwayne
wanting.
Wade sitting there with just completely
Right,
covered up, not
right.
wanting to just,
But then also, Rick Fox and, other people just, willing to let their emotions be seen and be vulnerable, and I think be in a comfortable position where you'd have to be a horrible human being. And of course there are those that are out there, which we'll talk about in a little bit later, who probably still, poked fun at or had,
right.
but
Or
that's
so, hey, you got to keep yourself together.
Right, such a
He's
small,
not. You don't. Yeah.
almost not even worth talking about, except for the fact that it is, because it's a shame that people like that exist. But I thought what was really cool was that after Vanessa spoke, that you had Diana Taurasi and then Sabrina Ionescu. As the, I think that's her first name. My goodness, I hope I'm not getting that first name wrong. But the Oregon player.
Sure.
You had the two, females before any of the NBA players, or before anybody else, and I wasn't sure if it was going to be Jerry West or Magic or who all was going to speak, but I liked that they were the ones who were the first because of what Kobe meant to the game of basketball, specifically for women,
Right.
and what a champion he was on things that I didn't even know. When they were doing the Kobe Day, I don't call it Kobe Day, but the Kobe coverage on the day he passed, that they all passed, they had Ionescu there. She had a game that day, and I'm thinking, wow, it's great that here's this person who's taking it this seriously and this emotionally, because I'm sure he was an icon to her. But the fact that they were friends,
There's so much more
and here's this person, with my own ignorance of the women's game, not knowing how great of a player she is. I mean, she after the tribute, she had a game that night against Stanford. She went for a triple-double and became the first collegiate player ever to go 2K, 1K, 1K in points, rebounds, and assists.
Wow.
And so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But that he had built this relationship and this true friendship with her, and that was pretty amazing. And then Diana Taurasi talking about, I could see myself as a Laker, not as a WNBA player, not as a spark, but as a Laker, because Kobe made me believe. And I think that was really the thing that through this month of just how many people he touched, and just how wide his touch was on the world. It was really amazing.
Right. And I think that's why they do start with that, because everyone knows that West and Magic and Kareem and Shaq and Jordan are gonna have things that they can say, and stories to tell, and moments in his life. But we know that.
Right.
We were expecting that for the entire thing. So before any of that to happen, for him to come out and be like, hey, that was just part of it. Like, we don't even have to start with those guys, because we have people who deserve to be here and tell this story.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and had great stories, and spoke, so much from the heart, and how they kept it together. I mean, speaking of keeping it together, Ani, I think you were probably halfway through the first Beyonce song, you had pretty much lost it. But speak to how you kind of, I don't know, did you picture yourself as a mother having to speak like that? This is our one and only child. But it doesn't matter how many you have, to lose one and to lose your husband. I mean, how did that, I guess, affect you? And what did you think of Vanessa being able to get up there and get through it?
I almost feel like I would tear up just now, you asking that question. Like, it is unimaginable to have to eulogize your husband, and then to imagine doing that for your daughter, and then imagining having to do it on the same day. I think it is so wonderful that she did it. I feel like, I hope that I would be able to have the strength to do something like that. God forbid. I'm sure it was something she felt like she needed to do to honor them and to, find the closure. But I thought she did a beautiful job, and obviously she had a lot of people there kind of lifting her up and supporting her. And the day it happened, I felt like, I'm sure so many other people did, that we all wanted to hear from her, because as tragic as that loss is, and thinking about it, like, you can't not think about her and her daughters. And I mean, it was kind of like watching her Instagram, watching, waiting for that first comment from her. And I think that in watching the celebration of life, I think that was the main thing that I was wanting to see, was how she was doing and where her head was. And it was hopeful to see her be so strong and to, cry throughout, but also laugh throughout. And I think that it's shows people that you can get through literally anything that's that tragic.
I think I was amazed at her strength and the way she's okay, and she, just pumping herself up. And you're talking about everybody who lifted her, the crowd just cheering for her. But to write those words, I think, has to be infinitely times more difficult than to go up there and say it. It's, of course you're saying it and it's in the moment and it's all coming back, but as you're sitting there, putting, pen to paper or typing it out or whatever she was doing, I mean, I can't imagine.
Well,
I can't imagine as a parent.
it under the stress of also knowing that all these people are waiting to hear from you. Mm-hmm. That it's not just that you have to do the unthinkable and write this for your daughter and your husband, decades before you even consider coming close to that with your spouse. And to have to do all of that, knowing that there's news headlines going out saying, still no word from Vanessa Bryant. She doesn't owe you guys anything. Right. You better not be prying on this and trying to figure out what she's thinking. Oh, Vanessa still doesn't go days without crying. Of course she doesn't. And you can't expect someone to behave normally or in any way what the media would deem appropriate. So to have to go and write all of that knowing that it's going to be scrutinized because it was too late, or because it didn't say this, or because it left out this, or because you didn't put an Instagram post out within the first week of it happening, because everyone is so obsessed with getting that information right away and hearing what and not wanting to, eventually people get over it and they stop talking about Kobe. It stops becoming important. And if they don't get all of those answers they need, like from Vanessa within that time, you see people become stir crazy from it. And I can't imagine the additional pressure that puts on a person like that.
Right. Yeah. And I think one of the things that gets glossed over when everybody talks about the Mamba mentality and how, strong Kobe was and how focused he was on everything in life, I'm sure a lot of that both rubbed off on her, and he gleaned a lot of his strength from her. That, there is this whole other half, this whole other partner. And honey, you and I know that a lot from just the way that we co-parent you, the way, or parent you with different philosophies, but also that, they were together for all of their adult lives. And, to think that she wasn't just a bedrock of support for him and helping keep him focused. When I was watching her, I was realizing that this woman is like strong on her own, and those her 3 daughters that she has to raise and that their family and their community has to raise, I think will be in a very good place because of her strength. And I think that was something that you noticed about her.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that you don't know, that's what they say, you don't know how strong you are until you have to be that strong. But of course, it's easy to forget about the support system that celebrities and athletes and all of these people have. They're the center of the universe when it comes to, the general public watching them. But that's obviously not the case. And I think when she ended it, her portion about Kobe, and she shared all of her nicknames for him and things like that, it just shows you, like, he's not, this amazing athlete, public figure. He, at the end of the day, that's her husband, that's the love of her life. There was nothing extraordinary about that, in the way that, like, their love is just like a deep love for any person that is lucky enough to experience that. His superstar has no bearing on that. And I think that's a good thing for people to be able to recognize. And I think that was the part that was most special about it. In this grand, in the Staples Center with all these people and all those things, the things she said were not for, that's what she would have said if he was a normal dude who lost his life and nobody in this world knew about it except for his close circle.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, her strength dealing with, the incident in Colorado, which, was horrible. And there's, some people there, rightfully so, who probably have a different, opinion about Kobe, because everybody has their demons, and that, needs to be something that isn't glossed over, but that she stayed with them with him and kept the family together, through that, I think speaks to her resolve and her strength and her love, and also to him being able to, I think, from what everybody says and from how she was, and really fundamentally change. I think that was an important thing for her, that showed her strength as well.
Yeah.
I like with Jordan that he let I've never seen. I mean, I grew up with Michael Jordan. You grew up Chicago, with Michael Jordan. To see him that vulnerable, and I use that word because he's so stoic. You don't really. He's like Derek Jeter. You just it's just Michael Jordan. You don't ever see. I mean, you saw him when unfortunately when his father was killed. You don't remember that unless you were looked it up, but you were born for that. But to see that, and what I really liked is that Jordan was really somebody who he was enigmatic. Even his Hall of Fame speech, a lot of people thought was was a little childish, was a little beneath him, because he just kind of always carried this chip, and the way he kind of described Kobe as a nuisance, I think that was very true, the way he felt about him. And it wasn't that Kobe wanted to be like Jordan because he was Jordan, the way that we all said, oh, we want to be like Mike. It's, I want to be the best basketball player. I'm going to look to the greatest to do that. And I think that he really learned to respect Kobe, and so I just like some of the little anecdotes, the stories that he told about, when he's asking Gigi, when Kobe's asking Mike about 2:30 in the morning, like, hey, when you were 12, like I forgot what I was doing, like what were you doing? He's like, I was working on baseball, and that was cool. But I thought that vulnerability and that true love, because everybody always kind of figured, or a lot of people figured that there was like a Michael Kobe beef, that was there, just like they figured assumed there was a LeBron, Kobe beef. I think we want those because in sports they're great. In sports you want the rivalries and you want that on the court hate.
Right. You want, and it's fun that competitiveness. You want the on court competitiveness. I can see the hate between teams, your Yankees and your Red Sox. It's always fun to hate the other team. But if you are a Yankees fan and, your guy gets to second and gives an ankle kick to the second baseman, you're never going to support that. You're never going to say, oh, because he's a Red Sox. No, on a person-to-person basis, respect and competitiveness. And if you're, I'm switching back to basketball, if you're going to posterize someone, you shouldn't feel bad about it. That's that you earned that. But if you're gonna, go and trash talk them and their family afterwards, hey, you can't do that. It's got that level of real respect and real recognized real on top of, hey, as much as I recognize real, I got to protect myself from it too, because you're good and I have to be able to compete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I do like those worlds combining, because, that they have to be friends. And it's weird. There's not many industries where you have to be direct competitors with your circle, with your friends.
Right.
I remember hearing an interview with Paul McCartney talking about the Beatles' friendship with Elvis and how they were great friends, but it started to get awkward as it was becoming clear that Elvis was dropping in the charts because of the Beatles. And it's tough, and there's not, professionally, no one's going to change anything about it. But I imagine that would take a strain on a relationship. Same with, being a friend with someone, Steph and Seth. Sure, they have fun playing together, but if Seth drops 30 on the Warriors, all on Steph, that's not going to feel good.
Right. No, it is an interesting dynamic where you do have that we cannot coexist in the public together because one of us has to beat the other, and when we're on the court, we have that rivalry, but then off of that, and I think when you get to that rarefied air where so few people kind of know what it is that you're going through, know what it takes to get there. And I think it took maybe Mike a little bit longer to understand and appreciate why Kobe was, tongue out and wanting to be like Mike, because everybody else, and it kind of is like, everybody wants to be that way. And it could probably get a little annoying, especially when you know, number one, how gifted you are, and there's some ego that goes along with that, deservedly so, but also just how much you worked your tail off. Because most people think like, oh, I want to be like Mike, and if I was just as gifted as he was, how great would that be? Not realizing that these people do more work in their lifetime than virtually any other sport to get there.
James Harden's comment on Giannis, did you hear that?
No.
I think it was Giannis. Because Giannis didn't pick Harden for the All-Star, saying, like, I want someone who's going to pass to me. And Harden literally responded with, I wish I could be 7 feet tall and just dunk. That requires no skill at all.
Oh,
like
really?
A super, almost seeming like, dude, are you really going to say that's something an ignorant fan would say? It was very surprising to come from someone who understands. Yeah, sure, you're not 7 feet tall, but because of that, you're quicker with your movements. You have your step back. I'm sure he wishes he could just create that much space in a little step because his center of gravity is that low or whatever it is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But just to have a star come out and say that it takes no skill.
Right. Or get to the line 22 times a day.
Exactly.
But speaking of passing, it was funny when Shaq was telling his story that had to get bleeped out about, where the teammates were asking, hey, Shaq, can you go to Kobe and, kind of see if he can spread the wealth a little bit, and pass. And, the Shaq, hey, Kobe, there's no I in team. Well, yeah, but there's an M in an M in an E, mother effer, and then Shaq comes back like, we're just going to have to get rebounds. Like I thought that was a great way to end it with a little bit of levity. I thought Jimmy Kimmel did a phenomenal job.
What a tough role, by the way, to come into that world. Like, I remember Seth Meyers talking about how hard it is to even do the NFL honors, saying like, it's weird to have a comedian come and make fun of athletes and exclusively athletes. Normally you don't do that. You don't have someone who's not part of your group come and just tear you down. So to have someone who's not part of that group to lead this whole thing and handle it well.
I thought it was done. I thought it was done so great. I really liked what Tom Brady had put out after that. Angela, I want you to read that, please. If you guys have read it before, it's going to take about a minute, but I think it's really important. So if you would read it, please.
He writes, what's really important? I have been deeply affected by the passing of Kobe, Gigi, and the others in the tragic flight weeks ago. Since then, I've witnessed the well-deserved outpouring of love and support for the families that had so much left to give, and it's helped me reflect and gain perspective. I know that love, peace, and joy will always endure. And in this tragedy, I've learned so much. Why has this touched me in the way that it did? Why has it kept me up at night and brought me so many tears? In Kobe, we were able to witness the man in the arena. For many of us, sports show what we are made of. They define our personalities and emotions. We cannot hide from the good or the bad, or the wins or the losses, the joy and despair, the happiness and the pain. What you see is what it is. We aren't actors. We have found a real life stage where we become vulnerable to the world and are judged based on the outcome of each performance, and we care deeply about what we do. For some, these days are the pinnacle in their life, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's clear to me, for Kobe, that it was just how he lived his life in every way. In his second chapter, you saw even more. You saw his excitement for life and for achieving in areas only he thought possible. He became more of an entrepreneur, media mogul, father, husband, and mentor, among other roles. He didn't stop with himself. Kobe didn't care whether you were a man or woman, boy or girl, black or white, rich or poor, ordinary or extraordinary. He wanted to help you become the best you could be. His mere presence had an effect on everybody he was around. He had the energy to recognize in others what they could not recognize in themselves. I think that's why I will miss him the most, because we all know the world needs more of that leadership and positivity. We recognize that he was doing the work that others don't want to or simply can't do. The world we live in is full of people telling kids and adults, you can't, you shouldn't, you won't, or you never will. The world we live in is teaching everyone to fear, to worry, to shame, or to give up. And that's the opposite of what Kobe stood for. That's what made Kobe a real superhero. He spoke about mentality with such conviction, about the idea that if you truly believed in something, you could achieve it. You could overcome the obstacles in your path. And not just that, he walked the walk and did the work. He pushed others to find that same confidence. He was the real life superhero our world needs. That's what we will all miss. That's why we hurt. Because we know that he was always fighting against the norm. He was doing more than his share. Now who is going to do the work that is still here to be done? Who is going to fight and break the norms with love and joy and inspiration? Who is going to discard fear and doubt and hate? Who is going to carry the load and be the superhero that he was? The answer is simple to me, all of us. Decide to make the change in yourself. If there is anything I have learned and been inspired by through this tragic event, it is this: seize the day. That's what Kobe always did, and that's what he wanted for us too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I hadn't heard that before, and I mean, I don't want to say too much because realistically, anything I would say would be just a poor paraphrasing of what that was, because that really did hit the nail on the head and check every box that it needed to. I mean, I had no idea that, and I think a lot of people wouldn't know that Tom Brady felt that way about Kobe Bryant.
Right.
But again, just in everything that it said, it makes sense, because how could you not? As someone who works as hard as Tom Brady does, who, you're fundamentally wired similarly to Kobe,
Mm-hmm.
anyone who's like that, and even if you're not, you can see it for what it is, and it'll inspire you.
Right.
And so really, I just, as a person, and in that message, just explaining every different angle, like we've been trying to do here throughout the set, just explaining every aspect of what he touched. I think Tom really elegantly hit all those points.
There were two takeaways that I had, and I read it when he put it out a few days ago. The first one is just always, Kobe was a year younger than me, and to see him, not even his basketball accomplishments, but to learn about all of the things, and that's what this whole month has really been about for me. I mean, I watched him. I knew how great he was as a player, but as a person, and all of the things that he did, and not that he wanted to do, it's just that he went out there and did. Whether he, regardless of the fact that he had the ability to financially, with stature, people knowing who he was, that's not relevant, because that mentality would have had him do that anyway. And there are people who do that. My dad, your grandfather, from where he came to what he built for his family, that is superhero type stuff in a smaller context. But I look at it as like, man, like I'm proud of some of, my professional accomplishments, as a husband, as a father, but just like realizing that there's so much more, and all it takes is effort to go out there. So that was one of the takeaways. My second takeaway was at the end, where basically like, well, now that Kobe's not here, like how do we fill that void? And when he's like, the answer is simple. It's all of us. And while simple and easy,
Right,
not synonymous always, and in this case it's not. It is simple. Something where I was thinking, I've never been to a WNBA game. It's to me very ignorantly always seemed, I described it, and I will say it seemed a little messy, a little ugly, just because you're used to seeing people play above the rim, and maybe a more precise game, but that is just out of ignorance, not ever having watched it. I compared it to watching like a JV basketball game versus a varsity basketball game, and just the level of athlete or the level of skill, and to know what he and Gianna would have been able to do to raise the stature of the game. So I will go see a game to do a little part of, making sure that there's a butt in the seat, and then, that there's some revenue coming in, to do that. But it is simple that it takes, it's going to take a lot of people, and I hope that it continues, and I think that it will, when you see the lasting impact, because you have celebrities who pass and they leave us too soon. And while I'm sure in their small circle, or their whatever size their circle is, their sphere of influence, there is the lasting, hey, we have to keep this, keep doing the good work that Steve Irwin did, keep doing the good work that Prince did, things like that. But just like the global outreach of Kobe, I think is something that But I know, Angela, you had when I asked you to get that prepared last night, there was something, I guess there was some, of course, there always have to be those people who are ugly.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot of comments on his tweet that are supportive and, you know, oh, that's great, you know, thanks for sharing, you know, and obviously all these tribute posts to Kobe that follow that. But then there's the people, you know, one of the first ones that shows up, it's just some guy talking about it's embarrassing how much Tom's looking for attention in the off season, you know, and a lot of things about that, or, you know, oh, I thought this was going to be his retirement post, and, you know, it's the nature of social media.
And that's honestly what I was going to get into. Realistically, those are just people those are just Patriots fans who know what's happening this season. like Tom, I mean, you know, completely moving on from that, Tom Brady is about to do the Patriots incredibly dirty. He is.
Okay, I mean, how so?
I mean, so anyone who's familiar with the situation in New England right now, more and more as the days go by, the reports are coming out that he's out of there. That he's not going to stay another season. He's going to go somewhere else, whether it's, you know, L.A. or Vegas or Tennessee or wherever it is that he's looking. It's becoming a little more settled upon that he's probably not going to stay there.
Okay.
And just after all of this time of indecision, and then coming out with a Super Bowl commercial saying, I'm not going anywhere, and then...
But is that anywhere not leaving Boston, or is that anywhere I'm not ready to retire?
Again, so clearly he left it open for interpretation, because clearly it's looking like he's going to leave Boston. But tell me, as a Patriots fan, you hear your quarterback under all the speculation of what he's going to do, and he tells you, I'm not going anywhere. I am not going anywhere. As a spiteful, salty Boston fan who's going to comment something like that, or who's going to burn a jersey of someone who got you all those rings and created your dynasty, which they will burn his jersey if he leaves, and those people are idiots.
Well, they are, especially, but, you know, and when you say, you know, he's going to do him dirty, I mean, is that in jest, or is that...
do him dirty, not for leaving, for leaving. He doesn't owe them to stay.
Okay.
But I think as far, you look at LeBron's decision, right? And you look at the reaction to that, and the amount of people who were mad at the way he handled it, and even just the phrase, I'm taking my talents to South Beach, and how that resonated so poorly with so many people. This, I think, is worse than that.
Okay.
I think in the way that he's handling it with such, at least LeBron, you knew he was openly in the market and looking around, and it wasn't so much of like, I don't think he'll stay. It's, hey, he's the kid from Akron. He's got to stay. Oh man, he didn't. As opposed to Brady saying, I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. This is the program we have. And then
but save for that commercial, has he ever? I mean, well, save for that commercial. Aside from taking pay cuts to stay, you know, aside for and them really not surrounding him. Now they're smarter. They're smarter than any other organization in the NFL. They're more well run than maybe any organization of professional sports
of all time.
Yes, I mean his mind. He has a general's mind, not a coach's mind, and that's where, you know, it really is. You know, when they say, you know, chess and everybody's playing checkers. You know, I mean that's how he is operating and exploiting, you know, market inefficiencies in the way that he does. But I'm surprised that you find it to be a bigger deal than LeBron.
Not his decision to leave, the way he's going to leave. The way it's just going to come out that he's like the next thing you're going to hear maybe is that he's signing with somebody.
But that's free agency though. That's free agency.
But when you're Tom Brady of the Patriots, you're not just some free agent. You're not a Greg Olsen who's a great player, but it's like, all right, yeah, I want to go see what's out there for me. You're Tom Brady. And you're keeping this entire thing intentionally super vague. And there's reports coming out that you have your people everywhere throughout the country, but you're not saying a word. And then you finally say one thing, or you finally do one thing. And it's a picture of you walking out of the stadium. And people are looking at what side your watch is on to figure out if you're walking in or out and the point of your toe. And then you come out and say, I'm not going anywhere. It's not even just in that. It's the fact that this whole thing is a bit of a game to him. And I respect it. As a non-Patriots fan, I respect it as someone who's like, who knows what I'm going to do. Right. You don't. Right. That's cool. But as a Patriots fan, they're about to get heartbroken. They know that the best girl they're ever going to get has one foot out the door, and they're begging to stay. They're saying, please, I need you in my life. You're the one for me. They know there's one foot out the door already.
True.
And no matter what happens, that's gonna hurt. And sometimes, and some of those people are gonna have poor reactions. But the way he's doing it is going to increase the magnitude of people.
So it's dirty, but you love it.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not mad at it at all. But if I were a Patriots fan, I might be.
But as not a Patriots fan, it makes it even that much better, because then after this 2-decade run, and they've been spoiled beyond belief. It was how like they were booing at a home game, and I forget who it was. I don't know if it was Bomani or it was somebody. It was like, man, you cannot boo if you're a Patriots fan for years because of what you had. Might have been Stu God's, or somebody I was listening to on Spen, but especially as like a tortured Jets fan that he is, it was like, how are you able to like boo it? Basically you're not allowed to. But I thought that was pretty cool.
Saw some people tweeting from a player from the Jets secondary, whoever it was tweeting like, don't care where you go, please just make it not the AFC East. Just please, anywhere else.
Yeah, what was it last year? The AFC East, if you bet, I think like $20 that the Patriots would win
the AFC East,
you won like $20.50, 20.40 or something like that.
Ridiculous.
So yeah, you got a lot of happy people in Buffalo, Miami, and what's the other?
New York.
The Jets there. But I guess maybe they're going to find somebody on the combine. We were watching that a little earlier. Our boy Michael Turk from ASU, they were making fun of him on the radio because he had declared for the draft with 2 years of eligibility left, because he was a transfer, I think, from Lafayette. Punted 1 year for the Devils, and then announced to go into the draft. And they're like, well, what are you doing? Why are you going into the draft? You have 2 years of free college left, get your education. And then, the other side of that was, well, if you can go make your money, especially in a career where you can kick for a while, like his uncle, I think it was Matt Turk, kicked for forever, but he decided to show off and did his 25 reps at 225. And you were commenting about like some of the people, like in the NFL today, like position players that he did better than. Who was it? I think Michael Bennett did like 24. Chandler Jones did like 22, 23. Vernon Davis, did that. Did 20 or something.
Even the running backs in his class, even watching the rest of the combine and just watching, I'm sure some did, but I didn't see anybody else hit 25. I saw a couple people hit 23. A few more hit the 20s. But yeah, even these star running backs who are out there are having it.
What I thought was the coolest and funniest thing from that is that there was only one other punter who did that, because you don't, of course you can pass on doing it. So to my surprise, that there was actually one other punter who did it, and we got 13 reps. And so I was like, wow, like good on you, like 13 at 220.
Just to show that you got it. You're there.
Yeah. I don't know if that's going to help him kick it all. It might, hinder him a little bit. But I thought that was pretty interesting from the combine.
Yeah, I'd like to see him. I'd like to see him go to punt, maybe stiff arm someone on the way down with his punt with his strong arm. 25 reps off of that. I mean, that can take down a weak safety.
Yeah.
For sure.
Or they're going to have to work some sort of where he's instead of the ball going to the up back, maybe he just runs up behind center. There, takes the direct snap and clears away for himself. But we'll have to see.
Yeah, work on his accuracy. That guy's got a 50-yard arm too. Right, just a couple fourth and long bombs.
Yeah, but I thought that was cool with and it's interesting your take on Brady and wanting kind of like rooting for chaos and for anarchy.
I think he's rooting for it. It's not even that I'm rooting for it. I think he is, to a degree, intentionally stirring it. I think obviously Brady's move is going to be big, but he is getting older. No one expects him to go and do what LeBron did to Miami. No one's expecting him to create a new dynasty. If he does what Peyton did for the Broncos, that would be incredible, and no one would be surprised, but no one's necessarily expecting him to do that. So if he's doing this to generate even that much more conversation around it, all the more power to him. Respect for that, for sure.
I wonder what those tweets would have been like, or the comments to his tweet would have been like, and not to try to make something funny out of what he said, because I love what he put. I believe that it came from his heart, because he doesn't need to put that out there.
Again, no one was like that.
Yes, again, he's a guy who's like a Jordan or a Jeter. Like, their greatness is in what they do on the field, and off the field, it doesn't. He has his TB12 and his diet. And he's a great father from the things that I've seen, but he doesn't. He's not somebody who's very socially active, and that's okay. or at least not publicly. I'm sure he does whatever he does, and good for him, but he doesn't put it out there. But I wonder what those posts to the tweet would have been if he had already signed with somebody else.
Right,
From all
exactly,
those salty Patriot
those would have been
fans.
tough.
Hey everybody, welcome back. We were in the middle of our conversation. Camera stopped working. We lost some audio at some point.
Happens.
5 videos in, trying to figure out what the hell it is I'm doing here. So we were gonna actually get onto another topic of conversation, which I do want to cover. I think it's some good stuff that I want to definitely get your opinion about. But we were about 40 minutes already, so
Yeah.
I
Good
hope.
news is I'm contracted for another 3 episodes
Okay,
on here.
good.
So
Well, this was only a half an episode, but we can negotiate.
Yeah,
We'll have your agent talk to talk to management.
This will be a sub-clause in that
Yeah.
within it.
But guys, no, definitely for those of you who stuck around with us, appreciate it. Sorry for that rough kind of cut to the end of it, but we will be back shortly, and appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you for listening. Hopefully this is able to get up on the podcast because we lost audio as well. But love you, buddy, and thank you much, man.
Very much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.